Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Redup telaga di remang petang, jernih airnya ibarat mutiara. Kami ucapkan selamat datang, sembah salam penuh ceria. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Yang berbahagia Tuan Haji Izmi bin Ismail, Pengarah Pendidikan Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Selangor. Datin Nur Faridah binti Ibaka, Sektor Pembelajaran Jepur. Yang berusaha Puan Maimunah binti Mustafa, Pegawai Pendidikan Daerah Kelang. Dan terus puan-puan warga pendidik walau di mana ada, di pulau maupun kuala, di Tanjung maupun Muara, di hulu maupun rantau, di kota maupun desa, di seluruh negeri tercinta. Buah pria disiris, disira-sira, gembira, bertamu dan alhamdulillah. Segala dan Maha Pencipta, Tuhan Penguasa alam dan buana. Hadirin sekalian, semoga dikurniakan kepada kita dan afiat, iman, taat, jujur dan dedikasi dalam melaksanakan kewajipan, terpelihara dari segala bala, ancaman dan keburukan, terlindung dari bahayanya pandemik COVID-19 ini yang melanda negara dengan taufik dan hidayah, nikmat dan rahmat dengan kuat irada pemilik sekalian. Hadirin sekalian, memulakan majlis dengan penuh hormat persilakan Yang Berusaha Puan Maimunah binti Mustafa, Pegawai Pendidikan Daerah Kelang, untuk menyampaikan ucapan alu-aluan beliau. Majlis dengan hormat mempersilakan.
Terima kasih Cik Rosli selaku pengacara majlis. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati, yang berbahagia Tuan Haji Izmi bin Haji Ismail selaku Pengarah Pendidikan Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Selangor. Yang saya hormati Datin Nur Faridah Ibakar, Ketua Sektor Pembelajaran Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Selangor. Tetamu hormat kita, seorang guru yang hebat yang akan berkongsi kehebatan beliau bersama-sama dengan kita pada hari ini. Nama dirahsiakan. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya kasih, untuk kita sama-sama berkongsi satu ilmu daripada orang yang hebat, dan supaya kita dapat mempertabatkan lagi profesion keguruan kita di Malaysia ini. Tahniah dan syabas kepada AJK pelaksana yang dapat menganjurkan program pada hari ini. Syabas dan tahniah pada Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Selangor yang memberi ruang dan peluang untuk pejabat pendidikan daerah Kelang untuk menganjurkan program pada hari ini juga, ya tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Dan juga syabas dan tahniah kepada semua yang terlibat, semua yang dapat mengikuti program pada hari ini. Dan kami mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih pada pengarah yang kita sayangi, Tuan Haji Izmi, yang dapat bersama-sama kita menyokong program ini. Dan saya selaku Ketua PPD Kelang sangat teruja, sangat berterima kasih pada semua SIC Plus, kepada Timbalan PPD Sektor Pembelajaran, Puan Saadah binti Kasiran, yang tidak pernah putus asa, tidak pernah jemu-jemu untuk membuat program-program yang bermanfaat untuk kita sama-sama berkongsi sesama guru, walaupun bukan saja di PPD Kelang tetapi juga di luar daripada PPD kita. Jadi sebenarnya betul lah, seperti yang selalu kita dengar, sharing is caring. Jadi semoga perkongsian pada hari ini kita dapat memanfaatkan serta menambah kualiti pendidikan kita seharian. Dan saya dipahamkan guru yang kita undang pada hari ini adalah seorang yang sangat hebat, yang dapat mengajar dengan sangat berinovatif dan sebagainya, dan beliau adalah top 10 top 10 untuk finalist finalist of the Global Prize Teacher Award, ya, khasnya untuk pembelajaran ataupun pengajaran kepada anak-anak orang asli. Jadi tahniah dan syabas kepada guru hebat kita. Kepada yang di luar sana, ya, kepada tuan-tuan dan puan-puan warga pendidikan, ya, di seluruh Malaysia, saya mendoakan tuan-tuan dan puan-puan diberi kesihatan yang terbaik, diberi semangat, diberi inspirasi, diberi motivasi, ya, untuk kita sama-sama mendidik anak murid kita supaya menjadi supaya dapat nanti mereka menjadi generasi yang boleh membangunkan Malaysia selaras dengan misi dan visi Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia. Pada Tuan Pengarah, terima kasih banyak-banyak kerana sudi hadir. Pada Datin Nur Faridah, terima kasih kerana sentiasa mendukung dan menyokong usaha-usaha kami. Dan kepada yang di luar sana lagi sekali, terima kasih banyak-banyak kerana dapat hadir pada hari ini, kepada Puan Saadah dan seterusnya semua pegawai-pegawai di PPD Kelang, khususnya SSC Plus. Terima kasih banyak-banyak di atas kerja buat tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. So all the best kepada semua. Jadi saya rasa itu saja. Saya memberi laluan kepada Tuan Pengarah kita, ya, yang kita kasih, iaitu Tuan Haji Izmi bin Haji Ismail, untuk meneruskan acara sebentar lagi. Jadi saya rasa itu saja. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Terima kasih semua.
Terima kasih. Hadirin sekalian, majlis merakamkan penghargaan dan terima kasih kepada yang berusaha Puan Maimunah binti Mustafa, Pegawai Pendidikan Daerah Kelang. Hadirin sekalian, mudah-mudahan kita dibimbing dengan kekuatan dan kekuasaannya untuk melakukan amanah yang tergelas bahawa bidang pendidikan ini bagi generasi yang berwibawa, berakhlak mulia, ilmu dan keterampilan. Hadirin sekalian, besar hati mengalu-alukan kehadiran tuan-tuan dan puan-puan ke majlis perasmian sesi webinar mengajar dalam normal baharu perkongsian amalan terbaik untuk di rumah negeri Selangor 2020. Hadirin sekalian, siri webinar Teaching in the New Normal Best Practices for Home-Based Learning ini adalah usaha kolaboratif antara Pejabat Pendidikan Daerah Kelang dan Jabatan Pendidikan Bahasa JPN Selangor akan mengadakan 6 siri webinar seumpama bagi meraihkan rakan-rakan guru, khususnya guru bahasa di Selangor, yang merupakan antara hero yang tidak didendang dalam menghadapi cabaran mengajar dalam normal baharu ini. Justru inilah platformnya di mana mereka akan berkongsi pengalaman menekan PDPR dan bagaimana mereka mengikut konteks sekolah masing-masing. Hadirin sekalian, buah lempata ditanam orang di tengah laman. Bukan kata sebarang kata, kata diungkap jadi pedoman. Meneruskan majlis, dengan segala hormat mempersilakan yang berbahagia Tuan Haji Izmi bin Ismail, Pengarah Pendidikan Negeri Selangor, untuk menyampaikan ucapan beliau. Majlis dengan hormat mempersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam JPN Selangor terbilang. Terima kasih kepada Cikgu Rosli selaku pengacara majlis pada hari ini. Yang berusaha Datin Nur Faridah Ibaka, Timbalan Pengarah Sektor Pembelajaran Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Selangor. Yang berusaha Puan Hajah Maimunah Mustafa, Ketua Pegawai Pendidikan Daerah Kelang, yang kita undang khas Cikgu Samuel Isyah, yang merupakan sekarang ini memanglah yang telah pun membawa nama kita Malaysia ke peringkat antarabangsa. Tahniah saya ucapkan kepada Cikgu Samuel, yang juga terima kasih for accepting our to be with all our teachers in Selangor. Thank you very much, Samuel. Rakan-rakan daripada sektor pembelajaran dan juga PPD Kelang yang telah pun mengusahakan webinar ini, yang saya rasakan cukup bermanfaat. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, Terima kasih juga kepada semua rakan-rakan yang dapat mengikuti secara live ini, kerana insya-Allah kita akan berkongsi bersama-sama untuk kita melihat apakah usaha-usaha yang boleh kita buat seterusnya. Untuk makluman tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, penutupan sekolah kita sehingga 18 hari bulan Disember tahun 2020 ini telah pun memberikan kita satu normal baru, yang mana kita telah pun dikeluarkan suatu panduan dalam PDPR oleh BPSH yang memastikan bahawa semua guru-guru masih akan meneruskan pembelajaran kepada anak-anak. Ini adalah suatu perkara yang sangat penting kerana kita nak memastikan bahawa mereka ini akan terus mendapat pembelajaran, terutama bagi anak-anak kita yang akan menduduki peperiksaan SPM, STAM, SVM dan semua peperiksaan-peperiksaan yang sepatutnya kita jalankan. Dan ini akan memberi kesan yang amat mendalam kepada mereka, kerana mereka ini pada masa sekarang perlulah diberikan motivasi, perlulah selalunya disantuni, kerana mereka akan bersama-sama kita untuk menghadapi peperiksaan ini. Dan insya-Allah pihak Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia telah pun merancang bahawa pada 20 Januari kita akan mulakan persekolahan, dan pada ketika itu kita mempunyai lebih kurang 33 hari untuk kita memastikan persediaan terakhir. Pada ketika itulah kita nak melihat di manakah boleh kita buat penambahbaikan kepada anak-anak kita. Bagi yang rakan-rakan lain yang juga saya rasa sangat penting bagi anak-anak kita yang berada tahun 1 hingga tahun 6, tingkatan 1 hingga tingkatan 4, mereka juga wajar untuk kita memastikan pembelajaran ini berlaku. Saya sekali lagi mengucapkan terima kasih kepada sektor pembelajaran dan hari ini khususnya kepada PPD Kelang yang telah membawa bersama-sama kita seorang yang hebat yang akan berkongsi dengan kita. Kerana yang ini, sharing ini ialah kita dapat bagaimana beliau telah buat. Bukannya secara teori tetapi secara praktikalnya bagaimana beliau telah buat. Dan insya-Allah saya yakin dan percaya kita boleh mendapatkan apa-apa yang beliau buat ini untuk kita adapt. Kita dapat ambil untuk kita memastikan bahawa kita juga boleh lakukan perkara sebegini. Dalam PDPR yang bila kita sebut, selalunya kita akan kaitkan dengan online. Tetapi kita perlu juga sedar bahawa pada ketika ini bukan semua anak-anak kita ini dapat akses secara online ini. Jadi pendekatan yang kita buat ini, sharing yang kita akan buat ini bersama dengan guru-guru kita, kita akan lihat secara online dan juga secara offline. Bagaimana kita boleh buat untuk memastikan anak-anak kita ini mendapat PDPR ataupun mendapat pengetahuan yang kita sangat-sangat harapkan. Saya juga mengambil kesempatan ini ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada seramai 24 orang guru dari sekolah rendah dan sekolah menengah yang akan berkongsi seperti yang Cikgu Rosli sebutkan tadi dalam 6 siri webinar. Dan saya harap semua guru yang berada di luar sana boleh mengikuti sharing ini untuk kita mendapat manfaatnya. Dan saya telah pun melihat kepada rakan-rakan kita yang kita jemput 24 orang ini ada jugalah merupakan orang-orang yang telah pun praktis. Praktis yang boleh kita lihat bagaimana mereka buat. Inilah yang kita namakan sebagai best practices. Di samping itu juga kita boleh share jika sekiranya kita juga mempunyai bagaimana cara untuk menyantuni anak-anak ini, kita boleh buat. So seperti yang saya maklumkan, terima kasih kepada unit bahasa yang telah pun akan memulakan 6 series bermula hari ini, dan hari ini secara keseluruhan, dan insya-Allah kita akan keluarkan jadual untuk hari-hari berikutnya. Dan yang ini kita juga mengumpulkan kepada 10 daerah. So bukan hanya setakat PPD Kelang sahaja, tetapi semua daerah di Selangor ini. Saya juga ucapkan terima kasih kepada semua PPD, semua yang terlibat kerana mereka juga akan membantu dalam perkongsian ini. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, saya juga ingin sedikitlah sentuh tentang bagaimana kejayaan yang telah pun dibuat oleh Cikgu Samuel ini. Di mana kalau kita lihat rata-rata orang kata kalau pergi ke sekolah orang asli ini, kehadiran menjadi masalah. Mereka nak mengikut menjadi masalah. So ini telah pun dibuktikan sebenarnya kalau ada cara kalau kita buat dan saya difahamkan bahawa Cikgu Samuel ni dia lebih buat kepada fun learning, bagaimana menarik anak-anak kita. Mungkin sekejap lagi kita akan berkongsi. Dengan itulah sekali lagi saya ingin ucapkan tahniah kepada Samuel yang telah pun memenangi Best Teacher Award, Best Innovative Teachers, the Star Golden Heart Award, National Hero Teachers Award, dan yang terakhir ini ialah anugerah Global Teachers Prize. Tahniah sekali lagi dan saya harap perkongsian ini dapat kita buat kepada rakan-rakan kita. Di samping itu juga pihak unit bahasa Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Selangor juga menjemput dalam kalangan guru-guru sekolah kebangsaan, SJKT, SJKC, sekolah asli hari ini, sekolah menengah dan juga kolej tingkatan 6. Jadi kita pelbagaikan untuk memastikan sharing ini dapat dibuat dengan sebaiknya. Dan seperti yang saya sebut tadi, kita nak menggunakan teknologi ini sama ada secara atas talian ataupun di luar talian dan juga mungkin juga akan ada secara manual. Sebelum ini kita telah juga berkongsi dengan pengetua cemerlang SMK Sarjana Utama bagaimana telah mengenengahkan kepada kita bagaimana guru-guru dia mempelbagaikan perkara-perkara ini untuk memastikan seperti yang saya sebutkan tadi. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan terima kasih. Saya juga dalam platform ini kita juga sebenarnya nak meraihkan guru-guru yang telah pun berjaya melaksanakan PDPR atau home based learning ini. Kita juga nak memberikan inspirasi hari ini adalah kepada guru-guru bahasa Inggeris tetapi selepas ini kepada keseluruhan seperti yang saya sebutkan tadi. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, guru-guru yang saya hormati sekalian, saya juga mengambil kesempatan ini untuk memohon kepada semua guru yang telah pun mengadakan PDPR ini ataupun home based learning untuk juga membuat laporan ringkas yang telah pun kita tatarkan bagaimana untuk mengisi feedback kepada apa yang telah kita buat. Yang ini tak lain tak bukan adalah kita nak melihat dan kita nak mengesahkan bahawa guru-guru kita memang bertugas semasa sekolah ditutup. Seperti istilah yang dikatakan bukan cuti sekolah tetapi sekolah ditutup. Inilah nak mengesahkan bahawa guru-guru kita sentiasa committed, sentiasa berusaha, sentiasa untuk berikan yang terbaik kepada anak-anak kita. Di samping itu, selepas ini the next step yang akan kita buat ialah kita nak melihat keberkesanan apa yang kita buat. Jadi first step ini nak memastikan guru-guru buat PDPR. Second step mestilah kita nak lihat sejauh mana apa yang kita buat ini disambut oleh anak-anak kita. Jadi saya harap usaha-usaha kita ini akan membolehkan apa yang kita harapkan khususnya bagi JPN Selangor terbilang akan kita manfaatkan. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada semua yang terlibat di sektor pembelajaran, di PPD, SISC+, pegawai-pegawai pembelajaran seterusnya, kepada semua guru-guru yang mendukung, yang juga yang support yang ke arah kita buat webinar ini dan akan merealisasikan apa yang kita sharing pada hari ini. Terima kasih kepada Cikgu Samuel dan terima kasih kepada semuanya dan insya-Allah semoga webinar kita ini akan berjaya. Sekian, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. JPN Selangor terbilang.
Hadirin sekalian, majlis tinggi-tinggi penghargaan terima kasih kepada Yang Berbahagia Tuan Haji Izmi bin Ismail, Pengarah Pendidikan, Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Selangor. Hadirin sekalian, seterusnya, majlis dengan bangga menampilkan pasangan moderator berbakat juga keletah, Saudari S. Kamini dan Saudara Yutis, untuk mengendalikan sesi seterusnya, sesi perkongsian amalan terbaik bersama tetamu jemputan istimewa kita. Siapa tetamu istimewa kita? Saksikan tayangan klip video ini.
Good morning. Thank you all for finding the time and joining us for today's exclusive face-to-face with Samuel Isaiah. My name is Kamni Silvindran and I am currently attached to SK Pelabuhan Kelang.
And I myself, Yutish Jiran Maniam, and I'm an English teacher currently attached to SJKT Taman Sentosa, Kelang.
And with us, we have Mr. Samuel Isaiah, or also fondly known as Cikgu Sam. First and foremost, please let us congratulate our very own top 10 finalists for the Global Teacher Prize 2020 in association with UNESCO. A little introduction before we invite Samuel. Please allow me to highlight a few of his notable achievements. Cikgu Sam has won several awards, which is the most recent one being listed as the Global Teacher Prize recipient. And prior to this, he is also the recipient of the Star Golden Hearts Award and the National Hero Teacher Award in the year 2019. Samuel is also the recipient of the Fulbright Foreign Student Study and Research Program 2019 scholarship, and he is currently pursuing his Masters in Educational Policy and Leadership with the Global and Comparative Education concentration at the State University of New York, Albany. Wow, it's simply outstanding reading your achievement. Congratulations, Sam.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kamini. Thank you, Yutish, for the elaborate introduction. First of all, I'm honored to be here to join you guys today in a conversation. I'd like to thank the JPN of Selangor, PPD Klang especially, one Lisa, who actually got in touch with me a few weeks ago, and we were initially scheduled to do this earlier, but things change, and we are doing it today. So I'm honored to be here and to be chatting with all you guys today.
All right, Mr.
Hi.
Sam, how are you today?
I'm doing good, thank you, very well.
All right. Okay, basically, we do understand that you were posted in Orang Asli school and you had a lot of challenges trying to assimilate yourself in the beginning
Mhm.
stage, especially in terms of socioeconomic, cultural, and the educational background of the pupils.
Mm.
Similarly, people tend to associate clang and classify our pupils as urban kids.
Mm.
But the reality is pretty much different. We actually have a vast range of peoples where we really have a very bright students and also have a very weak students. We also have students like neither here nor there. So there are challenges here as well. So our first question to you today is, what was your first impression when you entered the school and the community?
Well, first of all, I think every school has its own set of challenges and its own set of obstacles to face. I'm going to share with you some of the challenges that I faced, my school faced, when I was teaching, and also the Orang Asli community in general. So usually what we have is poverty, accessibility. Now, poverty, accessibility, facilities, these are main physical stuff, all right? Uh, in Orang Asli schools throughout Malaysia, in Peninsula, for example, this has improved significantly. However, the improvement of accessibility and for facilities and infrastructure, uh, we would assume that if this were improved, the results would follow, right? But that did not happen, mainly because of a lot of other things. So we have discrimination, we have language barriers, cultural inadaptability, and usually what we face in the school is low attendance and high dropout rates. So what happened in the classroom, I think when I first got into the school, and I think this observation that I've made throughout the years is something that doesn't only happen in my school or other schools. In most schools, this happened. So usually common situations in the classroom that I saw at the time was drilling, rote learning. That was the only way. There was no other way to teaching. There was no specific or descriptive plans, be it short term or long term for students. Even if they had plans, a lot of times the plans were just on paper. There was no proper follow up, there was no proper assessment to what was going on. The outcome was not something that they could predict. And no, there was no reflective practice towards what was planned as well. I also saw that there was uh, there was this negativity, as in there is no positive learning culture in the school and community. Students that are often left behind, all right, when they can't keep up, basically this cycle continues. Nobody does anything to stop the rot, and they continually get left behind year after year after year. And I also saw that school was not meaningful, and there was no purpose for these kids to come to school. So I think these challenges, these situations does not only happen in Orang Asli schools. A lot of teachers can relate to this, for what I've observed and basically what the literature has said. So back to your question of my biggest challenge. My biggest challenge on top of all of that was the negativity and the perception. Because at that time when I got to the school, there was this belief that we shouldn't do much for the kids because they can't get it anyways. So when even the basic necessities we do not have, even there is a lot of poverty with the community, and you add on this negativity and you add on this stigma, it's a very daunting task. I have to be very honest with all of you. It's a very daunting task. However, I didn't see that it was something that I could do or fix right away. I'm not a superhero with superpowers. I don't think that's how we should view this. It was a learning process, and my learning process started when I started getting close to the kids. I started getting closer to the community, and despite whatever that I faced back then, I realized that I was there for a reason, and this actually spurred me on. This actually motivated me to try better and to improve my practice personally. And I think that was the impetus to what I was doing. So I like how you framed that question, and I don't think this is a competition about which school is more challenging than the other. I've been to certain schools where I've shared throughout the years, throughout my 8-year career. um, Often the focus goes to the kids. When I share in urban schools, uh, I hear people say that, oh, the problem is, oh, they have got lots of social background problems. They don't have facilities at home. When I go to luar bandar schools, the blame would say that, oh, ini budak luar bandar, that's why tak boleh buat. I go to Felda schools, oh, ini budak Felda. I go to Orang Asli school. So it's always about the kids and how they can't perform, and not about us. I agree there are certain challenges that are out of our hands completely, but what we can do is improve ourselves, reflect on ourselves of what we can do better, and I think we would see significant results.
Okay, I would like to. Yeah, that was actually very interesting. When you shared about your opinion, like basically you were trying to highlight the facts that, we are not in, you're not doing this alone. All teachers, all over Malaysia, we face the same issues technically. Okay, so I would like to ask you, what are the strategies? How did you devise the strategies? You knew the problems. At the same time, what were the aspects that you put into consideration, when you came up with the strategies and all that?
First of all, I believe that the best impact a teacher could do is to simply improve everyday practice. Everyday classroom practice. This is what we should be improving on. The little things, not the mega big projects, because when we improve these small aspects of our everyday classroom practice, it creates sustainability. You improve with whatever you're doing in the classroom. You see your students responding to it. You become efficient in what you do. And before that, let me just mention a bit about what are principles. You see, I've seen a lot of times that people try to emulate what I do or what other teachers do, for example, maybe other top teachers, other award-winning teachers. But the thing is, a lot of these efforts that I do and my kids and I do and other teachers do would not work in your situation, if you do not have the same principles and the same beliefs like I do. You see, my beliefs and my principles are this. I believe learning has to be something that the students experience. I believe learning is not just about being fun, it has to be engaging. Students must see a meaning to what they are doing. I believe learning is communicative. I believe learning is something collaborative, where the students work with one another, when the students, help one another, creating autonomy and all that. This is what I believe as learning. These are my principles. But to a lot of teachers, not to say a lot of teachers, to some teachers, let's just say some teachers, if these are not your principles, then it's very pointless. Because if you see that teaching and learning is a linear construct, that I'm going to go to the classroom, I'm just going to follow this, I'm going to follow the syllabus to the dot, I'm going to give the kids, some worksheets, get them done, tulis, salin daripada papan hitam, blah, 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 angkat tangan, that's it, and that is learning. The impact is going to be totally different. Okay, so first of all, like I said just now, we have to improve our everyday practice. And my everyday practice, all right, if I can briefly summarize what I do every day in the classroom, which I believe is very crucial. Number one, I do a lot of role plays. Number two, project-based learning, 21st century learning. I try to integrate technology as much as I can to my best capabilities. I did lots of flipped classroom activities. I apply differentiation strategies, and I do lots of assessment to reflect the learning of what happens in the learning. So these 7 strategies that I mentioned to you, the core or the fundamentals of these 7 strategies is these principles that I mentioned to you guys about. It has to be based on that. And that is why a lot of times I think our ministry creates and introduce many amazing policies, 21st century learning, amazing. But somehow the implementation falls short, or students and schools don't understand it really well, that it loses its impact altogether. Because at the end of the day, what are we expecting? What do we believe as learning? What do we believe as outcome? That is very important. And this is not just about classroom strategies. This is also about other programs, like you talk about PLC and all that. It's similar. What do you believe is learning? Let's talk about reflections, being reflective. All right. For me, reflections are crucial, very crucial. And that is why I enjoy people criticizing what I do. I have a close relationship with my SISC officers. They come to my school and I welcome them a lot of times. We have this relationship where we are able to engage in critical discussion, engage in, I won't say blaming each other, but I think we need to point out errors to improve. If somebody don't point out errors of what I'm doing that is wrong, that needs improvement, I can't improve. Because I believe, again, my principles, being critical, pointing out errors of what I'm doing is key to improvement. So that's why it goes back to what we believe in. So back to your question, Kamani, I think this is very important. These classroom strategies are very, very, very important. And I think at the end of the day, at the end of this presentation today, this session today, if there's only one thing that I would love for everybody who is listening to take back is improve your everyday practice. The simple, simple thing. Let's say reading, for example. I was talking to Kamini and Yutish last night, and we spoke about reading. And a lot of us think that reading is always like, okay, the teacher reads and the students follow, but you're missing the point. Or one student reads and everybody follows. You're missing the point already. That is basically drilling and rote learning again. So how do you incorporate elements of project-based learning? How do you incorporate elements of communication, for example? You can try using jigsaw reading, where the paragraph or the text is actually separated from one another. Groups work on one paragraph, trying to make meaning of that paragraph, talking to one another, exchanging notes with one another, and then going back to another group to share what they have found. So you see, it's the same concept. I'm also teaching reading. You are also teaching reading. But my beliefs and my principles of how reading should be taught is different. And I think this is very crucial. I don't know how many times I've said this, but it's very important. Your everyday practice needs to improve.
All right. So just now, when you are explaining, Mrs. Sam, you were talking about PLC, right? We were talking about PLC and everything. So there are a lot of, in my opinion, there are a lot of good projects like PLC, HIP, root cause analysis, and so on. So, in your opinion, what do you think? How the teachers can improve themselves or can utilize all these PLC or these HIP programs?
Like
and
I
so
said
on?
earlier, okay, if you look at the interventions that I've done, let's talk about HIP specifically. It's a great program. Basically, what they're trying to say is, if I don't want to sound so full of myself, but look at what Sam is doing. Now we're going to try to make what Sam is doing in other schools. That's basically how it was. Like, using ukuleles, using music, getting the kids to be involved. I think it's a great idea. But again, it falls short because we understand school lead. I'm not saying just teachers, school leaders, school administrators, koto panitias, everybody, sometimes even officers misunderstand the whole idea behind HIP. And they also misunderstand the impact that HIP attempts to bring. At the end of the day, you see, when we reflect on what we do on HIP, I think it engages the students. It gets the students to try. And a lot of times I feel that HIP or the programs, let's talk about the programs that I do. People assume that the programs that I do are actually supplementary. What do I mean by this? For me, all the programs and all the interventions that I've done, be it the classroom practice, be it all the other programs that later we might show, these programs are not supplementary. These programs, I earnestly believe these programs will help my students learn. It will help improve them. That is what I believe in. A lot of times I think it is being viewed that these are just it's an additional program. No, ini program tambahan saja. At the end of the day, budak-budak kena betul-betul belajar. So what do you mean by betul-betul belajar? Is taking part in programs, taking part in exhibitions, presenting. Is that not betul-betul belajar? What do you mean? So I think again, it goes back to the beliefs, and I think because of that, these kind of great programs like PLC and HIP fall short. I don't really know how we can improve this in schools, unfortunately. It's my personal opinion. And that is why I think the first step towards what we are trying to do, if after our session today, your headmaster calls you Kamani and say, Kamani, do what Sam is doing and all that, I think the first thing that you guys need to do together is you guys need to talk about the problem together first. Understand what goes on in your school. Understand what works for your kids. Don't just do the root cause analysis for the sake of doing a root cause analysis. Find the cause, describe the cause, define the cause. Don't rush to find solutions. If you rush to find solutions, you ignore a lot of the problems. Define the problems properly first. Maybe in time, do some trial runs first. Try this. Does it work? It doesn't really work. I'm going to change it a bit. Because education is social science, it's not direct, it's not linear. You don't put a b c and automatically you get d, a perfect thing. You need time to actually figure this out. So don't rush to solutions. Define the problem first. What happens in your classroom? Discuss about it, critically talk about it, and then move forward.
Perhaps you would like to share how you actually identified the problems. I'm very sure the moment, when you went to the school, how was your perception? Like how, you addressed, how did the teachers, the students and all that, how was your view on, learning English? Was it like, oh, we have a new English teacher, or, oh, new English teacher?
Uh, okay. Like for me, when I got to the school, I think they were relieved to have me because at the time we did not have enough teachers. So when finally another English optionist showed up, it was quite a relief. So your question your question is about the perception, is it, Kamani? Is it the perception or?
My question is about the perception. How did the teachers view, a new teacher, another addition to the what is this, how was your first experience? Let me put it simple. How was your
Okay.
first experience, when you went to school, and what is this? When you went to school and all that, how did you
Indigenous
actually
schools, Orang Asli schools are often a comfortable place to be. Let me just put it that way. The expectations are always very low. So with low expectations, you can expect less visitors. And when you put an individual in an environment where the expectations are low, the easiest thing to do is just do nothing. Is just join the rest, dwell in the culture of blaming the children, dwell in the unproductive practices. It's very easy to do that. So that is basically what happened initially in for me. So I took time, and how I came up with a lot of the things that I do is taking time. That's number one, and number two is listening. We need to start listening. Leaders need to start listening to their teachers. Teachers need to start listening to the students. Schools need to start listening to the community. I think the best value of a person or principle that a person should have is to start listening. Realize that you don't know everything. A lot of times we think teachers come into the classrooms and, oh, this is the way to do this, blah, blah, blah. Try to go in and try to make a difference right away. Pause, listen, digest this information. And for me personally, when I started listening to the kids, looking at their wants and needs, observing how they do well, how they do not do well, I think that was the biggest difference that I could have ever made as a teacher. Because if we do not listen, I think we become very apologetic of what we are doing. We think we are doing the right thing. According to who? According to you. And we don't realize that we are actually part of the problem. Realizing that you are part of the problem is actually crucial. It's the first step because that's where you need to improve. Being less defensive, realizing that you need to be part of the world. So listen now. We need to start listening. It's been like I said, I told you just now, first we need to define the problem first. And then we also need to start listening. Talking about defining the problem, I think a lot of times we have a very different understanding. Some people have spoken to me about defining the problem, and I asked them, what's the problem with your school? Oh, saya budak-budak ni tak pandai vocabulary. That is not the problem, that is a symptom. Why are the students not good in the vocabulary? So if you try to find out why their vocabulary is not good enough, you would probably find that, okay, maybe some of it is related to their activities at home, or what goes on at home in their community and all that, but a lot of it will relate back to you, of what kind of teaching and learning that you're doing, of what kind of practices that you're practicing in the classroom, what kind of tools you're not using. So that is defining the problem, not stating the problem. You go to a doctor and you say, what's wrong with me? You have a headache. Of course you have a headache. You know you have a headache. But why are you having a headache? Find the problem, define the problem. And one of the key ways for me to actually address these problems is to listen.
All right, Mr. Sam, just now you were talking about listening to your kids and these things, all right. And I actually wanted to know, how do you engage, like your students are very close to you, like they came from all the way from Runchang to your wedding at Kuantan. I mean, they are very close to you, right? So how do you engage, how do you build up the relationship with your kid? I think most of the teachers wanted to know about how do you build up such kind of relationship with your kids?
Well, initially when I first started, I think there was this idea that teachers should separate themselves from the students. I saw this even when I was doing my practical. It was viewed this way, that if the students, budak-budak duduk dalam kelas, duduk diam, nobody moves around, sit down quietly, listening and writing from the board, nobody interacts. When they see this, that is good teaching and learning. And I thought that was totally ridiculous. It's basically like prison with children. You get what I'm saying? Everybody stands up when you're saying, everybody sits down when you're saying, everybody walks in a line. Kamini, were you with a trip to me to Australia? Remember in UUM? Did you join?
Yes.
Okay. So this when we were in UUM company and we went to Australia, and we went to a particular school, and we when we were at the school, I think it was recess. It was recess or something.
Yes.
And before that, we saw the kids. Actually, this was back in 2000. Wow, 2009. If I'm not mistaken, 2009.
2009.
And we saw it was very different back then. It was during recess, and the kids were actually conducting a TV series. They had like a news reporter, and everything, and all is done by the kids. Even the school's assembly is done by the kids themselves. And do they make errors? Yes. Do they go out of control? Yes. But that's how they learn. And another key point that I saw at that time was this. The kids were running. The kids were running out of control. I mean, for our culture, we will see, oh, this is a huge sin. Tak ada akhlak, tak ada etika, and all this what we're trying to say. But when I think one of our professors at the time, or our lecturers at the time, pointed out to the principal, oh, the kids are running. So, you know what the principal said? Yeah, they're supposed to be running their children. And I was like, whoa. I remember that very clearly. So the relationship that they build with the students, and the things that I build with the children, is to understand that children are always going to be children. How do we augment, or how do we adapt our practices to their capabilities is very important. Initially, people told me that I shouldn't be too close to the children. I need to set myself apart. And I feel I was being very fake if I did that. Like Sam after class is different, and Sam during classroom is different. I was like, why? Why do I need to be an actor? I'm just going to be myself. I'm just going to be the loving, honest self, and just try my best with the kids. And I just did that, and the students responded to that. And as I listened, as I dwelled into their practices, I dwelled into the community's practices. They accepted me. They accepted me for who I am, as I accepted them for who they are. And with the differences in culture between Orang Asli communities and ours, I think that was crucial. That acceptance, that trust was built. And I think from that moment onwards, then I just didn't care what people were telling me about what I was doing. I was even blamed to an extent where people were saying that you're spoiling the children. But my kids listen to me. They complete my homework. They get involved in my classroom, not because I tell them to, because they want to. Simple everyday practices that I do in the classroom, for example, let's say when we clean the classroom, right? I don't instruct them to clean it. I clean it with them. It creates a sense of this place is ours. You know, that is that sense of responsibility. When I first joined my school, we did not have a staff room, so that probably helped as well, because uh, I registered and I told my GPK at the time, where do I go? And he told me, you can go anywhere. I was very confused. Huh? I was very confused. Remember, Kamini and I, we came from Penang Island. I was in one of the good schools there. Everybody had their own cubicle, nice aircon room and everything. So it's like, pergi mana-mana, I was very confused. And I came to realize the school didn't have a staff room. So what teachers did were some of the teachers sat at the library, or some of the teachers actually sat at the back of the class. So I initially sat at the library, and then I went to the back of the class. But in time, I went into the class and I never moved. In 2017, we had a staff room, a new one, but I didn't move to the staff room because I felt that my presence with the kids was very valuable. I spent a lot of time with them from morning till evening every day, just being with them, listening to them, observing them, getting ideas and input from them to how I design my lesson. So, how do I build this relationship? It's very complex. I think I can't give you a lesson of I mean, like 5 steps to do it with your kids. I probably can't do that with you. But what I was doing is I was just very honest with what I was doing. I was honest with what I was feeling, and I just made sure that honesty translated to the kids, with the kids.
Okay, you're from basically from your explanation, we can see you have a very close relationship with the kids. So I would just like to know, did it actually help with the attendance issue? Because like what you said before, Orang Asli kids mostly, the main issue with them is attendance. That is why I believe you came up with the initiative called Sekolah Pokok. Actually, how was their perception towards this program? I mean, were they excited, or it's like you went looking for the kids instead of waiting for the kids to come to you? I mean, in schools and classrooms and stuff like that, you actually took the initiative to go all the way. You reached out to the kids. You actually, you touched something. You actually reached out and you were like, okay, I will come to you. The problem is you cannot come to school. Never mind, I will come to you. How was their, reception towards that particular program?
Well, a lot of the programs that I do, not a lot, all of the programs that I do must stem from making learning that is meaningful. They must join what I want to do with them, or we do, for the right reasons. I think this is crucial. What are the right reasons to join? We got to make sure kids want to learn. We want to make kids excited to learn, to see that they are missing out. That is basically the fundamental idea of what I'm doing. When I came up with the idea of Sekolah Pokok, Sekolah Pokok was actually a very short-lived idea. I didn't have the time actually, because I was about to leave to the States. I only managed to do it for, let's say, 4 months or 5 months, because I did it at the last year that I was there before I took my study leave. So one of the main reasons why I did that program, especially in an Orang Asli school, yes, dropout rates are extremely high. Attendance very low. So I realized that a lot of things that I was doing in my class with my kids, the attendance were good. The kids liking it, but this does not translate to the classes that I do not teach. So I realized that I needed to do something to help the other kids as well. That was one of the main reasons why I did it. And that's why I started doing it outdoors. And of course, with the incorporation of eco-learning, using the environment and all that, that's key. But the key reason why I did this was this. I realized that in Orang Asli schools, specifically in Orang Asli schools, the students that actually quit coming to school and stop coming to schools is not as significant, okay, compared to the kids who are already in school, who were consistent in school and then decided to quit. You get what I'm saying? So what the point that I'm trying to say here is this: a lot of the kids that were in our school, they were consistently coming, and then one day they just lose interest and they just stop coming. So we were losing our kids. The kids that we have already lost, it's not so much about focusing on them through this program. It is to maintain and to make sure that the kids that we already have comes to school and stays to school. And I wanted the psychology to be this, all right? I wanted the psychology to be this. They're not going to come to my classes because they're going to get a gift, or because they're going to get candy, or they're going to get something else, physical motivation towards something. They must come because they want to do what we are doing. I think that creates sustainability. A lot of times we try to look for shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. You try shortcut methods, it's not going to be sustainable. In 1 month, it probably work. You probably try to bring them gifts and chocolates, but they get tired of it very quickly enough. So a lot of the programs that I did was intentionally done to solve problems. The first program that I did was the 21st Century Learning Classroom. This was in 2016. So why I started coming up with that? I came up with this classroom in 2016 was because of this. I started teaching in 2012. All right, I started teaching in 2012, and we did all those strategies that I told you about. All these strategies, and the 21st century learning, project-based learning, and that. But I realized that towards one point, my students needed something more. They needed something more to escalate and empower and improve the whole learning process. And I could do that with technology. My point here is this: before I go further, I solely believe, and I still do believe, technology, gadgets are tools. First, you got to get your beliefs and your principles right first of what you want to do. Because I even with this online learning thing going on these days, right? I've seen two types of teachers. Both of them are trying really well to conduct online lessons, but because of different principles, some teachers, they try to incorporate communicative aspects. They try to incorporate project-based aspects in their online learning as well. Get kids to take some pictures, get kids to create some video. And there's another teacher who's probably doing online learning as well, but makes it into a rote learning drilling session again. So again, it comes back to the principles and how you use these tools. I think those are very important. So I wanted to have that 21st century English classroom to actually escalate their learning. First, I made sure my everyday learning, the everyday teaching and learning that happens in the classroom was efficient first, and then I brought in the technology. And because of that, this crowdfunding program actually was the impetus to my other programs as well, because we already had the infrastructure. I started off the EPAL, the email exchange program. I started off the poetry program. Then we did the storytelling program. It all originated from the 21st century English classroom thing.
All right. Talking about all this 21st century classroom, and then you did your this project Sekolah Poco and everything, right? So I want to ask, how do you tailor according to your students' need, or do you basically just follow the curriculum while doing all the projects
Thank
and
you for the
all?
question. The curriculum is a guide. The DSKP is a guide. I think this is often misunderstood by a lot of teachers. They take it at face value, and they just don't use it. If, for example, this is my personal opinion and my personal belief, if there is a book that's going to tell teachers to do A to Z to the dot every day in the classroom, you don't need teachers. You don't need special teachers to be trained for 6 years in IPG. You teach, to learn all the theories, to learn all the assessment methods. You don't need to get a degree. Just get a proper diploma, SPM or something. You have like steps to actually conduct in the classroom, and teachers just go into the class and conduct it. What teachers need to do is to translate the curriculum. How you translate the curriculum is important, and you need to use the skills that you have learned throughout the years in IPG, in university, talking. And this translation must be based in the DSKP, definitely. Lesson plannings are crucial, very, very crucial. You need to plan your lessons. Don't you ever think that Samuel does not plan his lessons. You need to plan your lessons. You need to, I believe that, you can't possibly improve something that you can't measure. So it needs to be measurable what you're doing. You need to have assessment strategies as well. How are you assessing the students? If not, you're just going to be shocked sendiri thinking that the students are improving, but they're actually not. How do you improve your own practice? So all this planning is key. And I take pride, a lot of pride in the planning and the amount of thinking that I do with my lessons before I actually step foot in the classroom. I keep on saying this, 60 to 70% of what you do in the classroom happens before you actually get into the classroom. For some reason, I'm hearing myself. I think there's an audio glitch. Is that fixed? No, it's not. Kamini, can you try saying something?
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
There's
Your,
feedback.
There's the echo, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I think now it's okay.
No, it's not. Okay.
okay?
I think we'll just go on, Lal. Just get the technical.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Just going to lower the volume. So yeah, translating the curriculum is very important, and you need to apply your skills to fit your students' needs. You definitely need to do that. And of course, mine is based on the curriculum. Yes, the curriculum is not something that someone out of nowhere came up with, out of random, pull it out of their back pocket and say, "Hey, you follow this curriculum." It is done by experts. Experts have researched on it, and of course, what is research? The fundamentals of research is actually describing what happens in real life. So it is based on studies. And of course, you need to adapt it to the needs of your students. Don't ever say lesson plans are not important. Don't copy your lesson plans from somebody else. You should not do that. You should create it for the needs of your students. Have a plan. I usually plan my lessons. You see, all my lessons and all my programs, they all work together. They do not work in silos. Okay, they do not work in silos. I'm going to be very affirmative with that. They do not work alone. They must be related to one another. If not, you will not see the impact. You cannot go into classrooms and start your lessons by doing it at random. It needs to have a relation and a continuity from week 1 to week 10, for example. That needs to happen. If that does not happen, it shows a lack of planning. Of course, along the way, you improve. I've changed my plans multiple times, more than I can imagine. And this also happens when, you see, let's say I did it very successfully this year with this group of students. I remember my last year, I wanted to do the email program with the kids again. And I couldn't do it because when I assessed the students, when I observed them for a few months, I realized that it's not going to work. They do not have the basic capacity needed. Initially I spent 5 months to actually build their capacity so that they'll be able to write short sentences, but I couldn't do it with them. I needed to come up with another program to solve that problem instead. So I did not do the email program last year. So this happens. You need to be able to adapt your plan because of course the students that you get are different every year. They are not the same. They could be worse, they could be better. So these are the skills that involve. And that's why I think being a teacher is tough because you need to adapt to the needs of your students. You definitely need to adapt to you. And this is what defines who you are. And that is why it's a professional job. It's not a job like you can go to the counter at a supermarket and take without even thinking, we can just get it done. It's not that way. If not, you're just going to be a waste of your degree, Yutish, and my degree as well.
All right. So talking about all these projects and everything, right? About the curriculum and all. How about the assessment with your kids? How did you assess your kids? Because once you've done your lesson plan, you are going with the Sekolah Pokok, email, all those things, right? So how do you assess your kids? Like PPD, right? We're having Taksiran Bilik Darjah, right? So how do you assess your kids?
Well, that's a great question. I think first of all, assessment is very crucial. Right? It's very crucial. So, but I believe that the focus has often been wrong. A lot of times we are product focused instead of process focused. The focus should be process focused first and then being product focused. Let's talk about doing analysis item, for example. This is my personal opinion. Yeah, you're doing analysis item. Before you do the item analysis, you need to also reflect on what you do in the classroom. It has to work both ways. You know, if you find out that from your item analysis that the students are not answering the comprehension questions, why? Now you need to find out why. And that goes back to what your practice is in the classroom. That goes back to how your students actually accept what you're teaching in the classroom. So for me, I do multiple methods. Sometimes it's the general progress of what happens in the classroom. Sometimes it's very specific based on the skills that I've been teaching them. uh, I'm not ostracizing. I'm not saying exam or rote learning is bad. No, I'm saying that is one of the elements. I said just now, 21st century learning, project-based learning, doing this, doing modules and all that. Rote learning is one of it, but it's not the only way. It is one of it. So my assessments also, I assess the programs that I do with the kids, so I would know uh, how they progress with the chords. Let's say I'm teaching them the ukulele, right? I know how they progress. I write it down. I have a chart. I have a sheet where I observe what happens. I also know what kind of vocabulary that they're getting from each different song. I also try to consciously increase the intensity of the songs that I give them. So every program I do, number one, is based on a lot of planning, and secondly, it must have an assessment plan for it. It's not just Mr. Sam going into the classroom carrying a ukulele, singing song, ha ha ha, and that's about it. No, it is not actually. To get to that process is tough. It goes through stages of planning and stages of improvement. So we need to focus on what goes on in the classroom. We need to focus on what goes on to the classroom. I like to focus on. I saw a question just now, previous batch. I like to focus on how that student has improved. For example, what I usually try to do is you improve that student. So for example, if that student scored a 10 out of 100 last year, I'm just giving a number, my main focus is to improve that students from a 10 to a 20 to a 30 to a 40 to a 50 and above. That is my focus. I can't be blaming anybody. I can't just say, oh, cikgu tahun 3 tak buat kerja, cikgu tahun 4 tak buat kerja, cikgu tahun ni tak buat kerja. I can't. Then go back to preschool. Oh, cikgu preschool lah tak ajar. At the end of the day, it's just going to be a pointless cycle of blaming each other. And the question about assessment, I think a lot of teachers might feel that assessments, filing, putting these documents into a file and all that, coming up with charge, it's not teaching. I'm sorry to say that is teaching. That is teaching. Observing the progress of your students, observing the progress of yourself, observing the impact of what you're doing is teaching. You need to observe and you need to be very, very critical in what you're doing. Of course, it's not easy, Yitish. It's not easy. It takes time. Whatever that I did, I tried to do with my students, it takes a certain time to make sure that I focus on doing it and I get efficient at it. In a year or two, it becomes second nature. It becomes very second nature. I do this, you know what to observe. You know the process that happens in the classroom. You know what to look at. You know what to write down. A lot of times also, I do lots of reflections and anecdotes. I write descriptively what happens. I write descriptively what happens. I write descriptively which student in the group, let's say they're working in a group, okay, Kamini is doing well, blah blah blah, but probably Kamini needs to try doing this more. She's speaking well, but probably not in proper sentences. But Yutish, on the other hand, there is somehow he's dropping, he's not using the vocabulary that I'm teaching. I write this down. You don't write it down, you'll forget.
So basically, we can deduce that, reflective practice is the essential. At the end of the day, we need to focus on the process. Learning is not like, one day. You can't teach anything in just a day. Along the way, the process is important. That's what
I like to add on the process and the product.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah,
it's not one over the other. Don't get me wrong. It's not one over the other. But a lot of times we choose one over the other. It has repercussions, definitely. If you're too process focused and not focused on the products, you will see that the students are engaging, the students are doing so well in the classroom, but for some reason, it does not translate into the exams. And it becomes pointless already. Like for my kids, the reason why I had to make sure the focus was on both, because if they don't do well in UPSR, for example, for my kids, They don't get scholarships. They don't get to go to a school because poverty and all that. They need support. And if they see that they're not doing enough, they're not getting the support, at the end of the day, it ruins their whole life. It's not just about going to form one, it ruins their whole life. They don't go to school and their choices. And I feel very responsible for that. It has to be both. It definitely has to be. It's not one over the other. And we do one over the other, it's just going to be very pointless.
All right. So just now, okay, when Sam is doing something different, okay, let's say Sam is in the school and Sam is doing something different, right? Different from the other teachers, not the normal one. He's doing something different. He's doing his assessment differently. He's teaching differently, and he's so much different than the normal way that how we used to it lah. Then how the teachers or how the teachers in school or how your leaders and how the admins take it, and when they tell you something, how do you handle the situation? How do you handle them? Like, okay, let's say Sam is doing this is different, so how do the teachers take it, and how do Sam handle the
Before
issue?
that, I just like to quote one comment. Sorry, I just can't keep my eyes off of it. The comment says that Orang Asli schools have so much freedom, low expectation. It's true. The expectations are low, but teachers take it for granted. This is what I believe. However, the other challenges in Orang Asli schools are very real as well. There's a reason why the expectations are low, because of the complexity of Orang Asli schools and communities are very complex. uh, uh, Healthcare, even malnutrition, even socio-economy status and all this at the end of the day are interconnected, and it relates back to education. And though what we can focus on the school, but I don't think it's just it's not something as simple as Orang Asli schools have freedom but teachers don't want to do anything. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is these are the certain positives that we have, but the negatives, there are a lot also. There are a lot of other challenges as well. Sorry, Yutish, back to your question. Is it about the acceptance of the people around me about what I'm doing? Great. um, First of all, I think very early on, by what I mean very early on, this was in 2012, 2013. At that time, I think the acceptance towards what I was doing and how I was doing it was not as much as it is today. Back then, project-based learning, you know, uh, engagement, having fun, using music was looked at with ridicule. People were actually very cynical about it. And I think at that time I was doing it quietly. I don't have the habit of sharing. To be honest with you guys, I don't have the habit of sharing what I do online. I don't have time for it, to be honest with all of you. I'm like, let's just focus on the kids, because my intention is just to focus on the kids. I thought I was just doing my best. I want to do my best to improve my kids. But my beliefs, I think I have very strong beliefs. My lecturers taught me well. They taught me well to know what I believe in, to know what I see as learning. So though the challenges were there in the beginning, I think Kamini knows me well. I have some kind of I don't care attitude towards what people say about me. I know what I'm doing. If I'm very certain of what I'm doing is right, I would prove you wrong. And this also goes back to how I view my kids. I told you guys about the negativity. I told you guys about the stigma and all that initially. I was driven by wanting to prove people wrong. It kind of felt that people said that my kids are dumb, my kids can't do this because they are Orang Asli kids. I was like, no, that's just ridiculous. You're basically saying, it's kind of like, Yutish, when you have children one day, someone says your son is stupid, how would you feel? So I felt it. I took it very personally, and I was like, no, I'm going to prove you all wrong. And it's also very important. Someone asked about action research just now. Yes, you got to be evidence and research based. Everything that I do, I try to justify based on my own research, on what that is out there. And this is crucial in your decision making. A lot of the things that you have learned in IPG or universities and all that, you will not see it face to face. You would not see Maslow's theory right in front of your eyes. You know, the dog with the bell and all this Pavlov and all that. You will not see it, but you need to you need to see it how it happens in your context and use those theories to solve your problems. I think that is very crucial. You know, these theories, this research, this action research. You know, action research is basically being very reflective as well. You are trying out an intervention, you are assessing that intervention, you're seeing how that intervention is going to work, and then you improve yourself, you improve your practice, your students improve. Eventually it would really, get to students doing well in their exams. So I try to justify, and I always justify, I'm very professional in what I do. I try to be as professional as I can. So whatever I say has to stem from research. It has to stem from evidence. We are professionals, what? We are professionals, and the decisions that we make as teachers in the classroom or whatever, you know, in the classroom, in school, has to be based. It's not supposed to be based on hearsay. Oh, I heard you teach say something, something, something. That's why I'm going to do this. No, even if you're listening to me right now, don't take it at face value. Go and find out how can music improve and engage learning. Go and find out how can you assess when you're using, how you can assess your students when you're teaching them with technology or with poems or with poetry. Go and find out, improve yourself, make yourself better. And at the end of the day, this attitude that I had, you know, to want to prove what the kids are capable of is something that spurred me forward lah.
Okay, we have a question from one of the audience
Awesome, bring
regarding
it on. Yep, love it.
how did sorry,
How did
how
you
the process of gathering the materials and methods in teaching the pupils. I mean, what are the materials? How did you decide the material? Let's say, for example, like what you say, you know, the issues in Orang Asli school is totally different compared to the issues which we are facing in Klang. So, you know, how did you actually like tailor the material? Like, you know, for example, the issue, let's say, for example, the problem is speaking. Okay, what are the activities especially? Because I am very sure for your kids, English is probably second or maybe third language. Because in Klang also, in most of the schools, I mean, English is
Yeah,
practically
the problems
second.
are not that much different, isn't it? It's
Yes,
actually very much the same. If you
yes,
actually
that's
put it
right.
into context, it's
Yeah.
actually very much the same. And it's just maybe the severity is a bit different. You know, the expectations are a bit different. Community, societal. I mean, a lot of, for example, when I was telling you guys what happens in the classroom, you know, rote learning, students do this, blah blah blah. But it happens everywhere. It's not new. You know, you can just walk into everywhere. So I think gathering the materials, my decision making, and teaching the pupils how I make decisions, of course, goes back to what my principles of teaching is. You know, what do I believe in teaching? So when I have that correctly, whatever I gather and how I adapt what we already have to the needs of my students, involve a lot of good critical thinking and decision making. Another thing, when I did not know, I went and asked. I asked people. I went and found out. When I knew I was incapable, I am incapable. I don't know everything. But I had this attitude which I don't know, I need to improve. I go and ask people. I try to engage them. You know, I try to see what they're doing. And obviously, I've got to adapt it to my students. Definitely, you know, I have to adapt it to my students. Uh, I network a lot as well. I try to go for conferences, try to get ideas, see how I can use it. I don't usually buy a book off the counter and try to apply it to my kids because, you know, language barriers, cultural, you know, the levels and all this. I try to adapt it to the needs of my students. And that's why throughout the years, I've actually come up with modules of my own. Now, before you ask me for the module, I would discourage you from having them because my modules are in sync with what I do, with my everyday practice. It is in sync with my everyday practice, with my beliefs and principles. It's in sync with the projects and interventions that I do. It has to have that connection. It has to have that connection. So I don't want to be very negative about this, but a lot of times when we are asked to come up with interventions, we come up with modules. That's not necessarily the answer to everything. It is one part of the answer. It is one part of the answer, but it's not just the answer. You don't need good modules all the time. I mean, like, okay, you look at the picture now. These are four stuff that is. There are actually more. Some of it are in collaboration with my PPD, some of it in collaboration with some of the other teachers that I worked with. So these modules that I came up with for my students, they actually relate to the way that I'm teaching. So it will not work, or it's just going to be as good as any other modules out there or any other books that you can get in bookstores if you don't apply the same teaching strategies that I do. So there must be that relationship. Hi, okay.
So yeah, like what you said, at the end of the day, we have to see, and you don't come up with one particular module. You cannot say, oh, Sam said this is the best module for his kids. I can't take that module and apply with my kids. That's what you're trying to say. I mean, basically, yeah,
No, no,
that's
no,
why
no. What I'm trying to say is teachers need to have the capability
they
to adapt to,
are
number one, not see modules as the
as the
only way to
only
do everything. It shouldn't be that way. Modules are important. Let me
yes,
emphasize this. Modules are important, but it's not the only way. And it's not the only intervention. We usually try to look for an easy way out. We don't know what to do. Let's just do a module. Every day, every year, come up with a module. Have we ever actually tried to look at how impactful those modules are? Is that actually really our problem? Is that actually really something that we need to focus on? Again, defining the problem. These are all practices that we need to improve, or what kind of decisions that we are making in the classroom. They are important. Modules are important. Exam techniques are important, yes, but it has to work together. And again, define what's wrong first before actually jumping to the solution.
yeah, that's right. Okay.
All right. Sam, I just wanted to ask, okay, at first initial stage when you
Yeah.
enter the school, when you look at your kids, as far as you have told me, your kids, they don't know any other language than their native language. And I mean, at the first, like at the first. So, how did you overcome the problem there? It's like, okay, if I want to relate to myself, most of my kids, they only know their mother tongue. Other than that, English is a
Mm,
second language for them, right? So it's like a big
mm.
issue for most of the teachers, like how to overcome the mother tongue and need to teach a second language to them. So the initial stage, what are the steps that you have taken?
Great question. First of all, for my students, they are from the Jakun tribe. So kids that actually first enroll in school, let's say in year one or year two, they will have a lot of problems because at home they only speak mostly speak Jakun, and when they come to school, of course, they're introduced to Malay, and we definitely need to focus that as well. So English comes in as a third language. This situation has improved throughout the years. Certain years that let's not dwell on that. But my point is, what you're trying to say is, how can we encourage students? Let's say we're talking about English. You see, Kami, can we look at the last slide that we have? I think that would explain a lot. That's the last slide. Nope. Nope. Yeah. You see, let's look at this. I just put this up here for some time. This is basically what I did. And everything that we do, my children and I, we goes back to this. Okay. How do I actually create them to make sure that they have, for example, first, meaningful everyday learning strategies. Secondly, I needed to transform the English language environment with 6 main programs. Okay, so these are important. These two is very, very crucial. I can't do meaningful everyday lessons and expect the same impact if I do not transform the English language environment. It doesn't work that way. It has to have both of these elements going together. And transforming the English language environment, meaning it gives them opportunities to use the language. A lot of our kids do not have the opportunities to use English language at home or anywhere else. For my students, it's even more severe because there's no signboards at home in English. They don't go past malls or anything. They don't see any of this. So I had to make sure that the environment, the English language environment, was rich in the classroom itself. So it had to have meaningful everyday learning strategies. I needed to transform with this 6 main programs, come up with specific modules, do detailed and reflective assessment of strategies for learning, and of course, love and creating a relationship of trust. So these 5 things go together. They do not work in isolation. Each element crucially complements one another. So if you're asking me how do I encourage students to actually speak more English or use more English to the classroom, specifically I can answer you is by doing number two, but it's also number one. And all the others as well. You know, I can't specifically say it only works with number one, because that's not true. Number two improves it as well. Number three improves it as well. Number four, number five improves it as well. It needs to be everything. There is no one solution. There is many solutions. And how you actually connect the dots, the problems to the solutions, how you actually connect it to one another to actually create something that really works for your children, that is crucial. But if we are only talking about what happens every day in the class, you need to create the best opportunities for the students to use English. I teach my students, I'm being very honest with you guys, right? Very honest, huh? If I get my kids in year 4 or year 5, usually that's where I get them, I would first assess them first. And I see how old their English language, mostly the communicative skills. And a lot of times they don't know simple words, tables, chairs, stand up, nothing. You know, I also, what I do is I usually record videos of them. At the start of the year, I record videos of them speaking to them. And so what I try to do from that moment onwards is to start with at least 10% of English when I speak to them. Okay, 10% of English. And this gradually improves throughout the year as much as they are improving. When I apply these 5 main strategies, I see that they are improving. The more they improve, the more English I give them. Because kids are like sponges, you know. The more you expose them to the language, the more they listen to the language, they know what my expectations are. There even comes a time, I think we can come back to our faces. So, there even comes a time where I remember this very clearly when I was speaking to some of my parents, some of the parents and the kids. So because I spoke so much English with my kids in the classroom, a lot of times they also think that I don't understand Malay or I don't understand Jakun. Have created that expectation, but of course I understand that. So I remember this anecdote of what happens. You know, I was speaking to the parent, and what my kid was doing was this. You know, the kid was worried before the parents came to school. The kid was worried. She was telling me like, "Sir, how tomorrow?" You know, they try. We speak like, "How tomorrow?" I said, "How tomorrow? What? You know, how tomorrow? What?" And she was worried that when her parents came to school, her parents are not going to understand what I'm saying because I only spoke in English. So that was her worry. I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet of you." I said, "Okay, never mind. When I'm speaking to your mom or your dad tomorrow, you're going to sit with me, all right? And you're going to translate for me. I just want to see what happens." So when I sat with the parents and I was speaking in English as usual, and she was helping me out, you know, trying, and I spoke in English purposely so that she could actually translate it to her mother. So what I'm trying to say, Yutesh and Kamini, is I do believe that translation has got has got certain benefits to it. Yes, but I try my best and make it as the last resort. Another thing that I did the other day, I went to school and I was telling the kids. So I wanted to explain to them about snow. All right, I wanted to explain to them about snow, and the easiest way was to translate. Snow is salji, right? These were year 5, year 6 kids. So easiest way to do it. But I know that should not be the way. So what I said was this: white color, you know, white color. Then they were like, yes, white color. That one boy did not get it. So I pointed to the wall. The wall was white color. It's like, okay, come from sky down. It took 15 minutes of my time, but it was so much worth it because that process where the child tried to figure out what I was saying was very important. I could have just said salji and get on with it, but I didn't. So this what are my practices in my classroom. And with this kind of everyday practice and what I believe in a year or year plus a bit, I speak to them in English all the time. I speak to them in English all the time, you know. And of course, my progression from 10% to 100% or 90% must be backed with evidence as well. How do I know that I can increase 10% to 50%? It's based on my assessment. You see, it all plays a role. I can't just shot sendiri and just try. If somebody comes to my classroom, let's say I get a new batch of kids in January, right? Get new batch of kids in January. And in February, I get a visitor. Let's just say I get a visitor from PPD or whatever. And this visitor says that, oh, why are you not speaking in full English? I'll show that the evidence. This is what I've been writing about them. This is the evidence of my assessment of the kids. This is the video that I recorded of them. I asked him, what is this? This is how in the world would you expect me to speak 100% English in the second month if this is my assessment? This is the evidence that I'm showing you. You see, well, most of the time that was not the reason why that I had the assessment to prove somebody wrong. No, that's not the reason why. But it shows when I need to progress. So these kind of practices, I mean, you need to know when to use it. You need to make informed decisions. If you want to translate, yes, you can. But why are you translating? Show me why. Show yourself why. Because it's easy. At the end of the day, as human beings, what we attempt to do is this, myself included. We always try to find the easiest way to do something. And the easiest way to do something is to translate. The easiest way to do something is to not plan. The easiest way to do something is to download all the lesson plans online and make it yours, or even copy paste a reflection. That is the easiest way to do it. Yes. How effective it is, you be the judge. Show proof to show whether it's effective or not. I'm not saying that I disagree with translation and all that. No. I think we need to make informed decisions. Why are you doing certain things at that particular moment of time? You need to know that for yourselves. You need to show that to also show how it would affect your students as well. Because if my kids are not showing any improvements, let's say I'm losing only 10% for 6 months, it's not that there's something wrong with the students, there's something wrong with me. I keep on thinking all my programs are working. I keep on thinking all my projects are working. I keep on thinking that my everyday practices is working. It's just going to be pointless. At the end of the day, you're just repeating, doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you're expecting different results, which unfortunately you won't get.
All right, Sam, talking about Bahasa Jakun, do you know the Bahasa Jakun? Can you
Yes.
say few sentences for
Yeah,
us, maybe?
perhaps.
Let's say you can say you think you are handsome.
I'll not say that lah. Because you think you're already handsome. I don't have to say it in Bahasa Jakun. I think the one word that I would love to share with you guys that is often said by my kids. This word is significant. This phrase is significant because it implies what I've been going through throughout the years. My kids used to say this word. It means the phrase is kampak naho. Kampak naho means I don't know. So besides meaning just literally I don't know, I remember very clearly at that time when I tried to do something new, the kids will just say kampak naho. It's like a psychological rejection, like an immune rejection system going on, because they believe that they are incapable. They believe that they can't do certain things already. You see, I was talking to you about the challenges that I face, the negativity, these perceptions that everybody has on that. It's very sad that throughout the years, this negativity has imprinted on themselves as well. They believe that they are incapable. So all the time they say kampak naho, kampak naho. It makes me annoyed also because like everything you don't know. Let's try to do group work, kampak naho. Let's just do this, kampak naho, kampak naho. But now I think, and that is why the best result that I'm very proud of, not just the exam results, was the process. And my students can now say, instead of saying kampak naho, they now say kam naho, which means I know. It shows a sense of autonomy. It shows a sense that they have actually overcome that barrier of believing what they can and what they can't do. They know that nothing is impossible right now. And I think that is very crucial, Yutish.
Okay, Sam, I just wanted to ask you another question. All right. Now we know it's a pandemic season, and it's now we're having all this PDPR, we're having all this online learning, and so on. As you mentioned just now, you said that it has to be the perception of the teachers on how he or she deal with the online learning, right? So my first question is how in your opinion, how do the teacher tap the pupils' interest towards online learning? And then the second question will be, how the teachers can make the online learning more meaningful, more effective, same as the one PDPC.
First of all, I will not say that it's teachers who are the ones who are having this kind of expectation. I will not say that. I think it's we have to look at it as a systemic problem, as a school's problem. What do the schools think is learning? That is very crucial. So when we are doing online learning, we need to look at methods to engage students more. How can we make sure that it's not just a session like this, like Sam is just there talking for 2 hours and you're just, even I would get bored, no matter how exciting the lesson could be, if it's just one way or someone who's actually just blah 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 for 2 hours, it's just going to be the students will just lose interest. Even adults do. So what teachers need to do is, okay, first of all, identify what you have, what skills you have, and what skills you don't. Once you have identified that, you need to know what you should improve on. Definitely be critical of yourself. You need to know what you should improve on. What you don't have, go and get it. What you don't know how to do, look for samples. A lot of our teachers are doing great, actually. Some of them with the green screen, some of them with this, some of them. You probably don't have to go to that extent, but evaluate what you can do and how you can improve yourself first. I think that is crucial, no matter what the medium that you're doing. And of course, secondly, you need to know what your students are capable of also, what kind of times they need to have. For me, if I would put in this position, what I would do is, firstly, I would try to understand whether my students are capable of joining online lessons every week or not. What are the issues that they face at home? What are the needs of the family? Is the family able to do this? You can't be expecting every child to come up like 1 hour, 2 hours class with you every day. It's just not feasible. Feasibility is something that you need to figure out as well. So I personally think, UT, that our teachers are capable. They are very capable. But I think adapting it, defining what happens, what are their weaknesses, what they have, what they don't have, I think that needs to be focused on. And to come up with a plan, an assessment plan, a continuous sustainable plan. I think that's what we need to focus on. There are already a lot of people sharing about how to do videos. Go and find out a lot. From what I remember, a friend of mine, Cikgu Hilmi, he and his group of teachers, they're doing something called Cikgu Tube. Amazing stuff. A lot of videos, a lot of instructional videos. They will teach you, okay, if you do not have this camera, what do you need to do? If you do not have this platform, what do you need to do? These information is already out there, and hats off to a lot of our teachers who are actually making the extra effort to share their expertise. What we need to do right now is, okay, I don't know, good, you don't know what to do, that's a good way to actually first step. You realize that you don't know something, now go and find out how to do it. Adapt it to your situation, adapt it to the needs of your students. I think that should be the focus, Yutish.
I have another question. Okay,
Yes.
looking at the number of students in your school, I mean, roughly how many students per class actually
Hmm.
you have? Because I wanted to ask you, do you think classroom size actually matters? Classroom size and all that. Because I'm very sure the number of students we have here in Klang, we have about 30 to 40 students. So what about how do you actually, cater a lesson to, I mean, according to your students' needs? Because we know one size doesn't fit all, you see. So practically we need to come up with, different ways. Maybe perhaps you could share, your practices. Maybe, we can learn something out of it.
Great question. I think when we talk about infrastructure, when we talk about classroom size, these are all relevant issues. And that's why I fervently believe teachers need to be provided with the best help possible so that they can actually empower the students, teach the students to their best capabilities as possible. My classrooms are maximum 25. And I think, this is my personal opinion, this is actually a great thing for rural teachers to have. A lot of rural pedalaman schools, the classroom size is relatively smaller than in urban areas. And that, in a certain way, has actually improved my practice a lot. Definitely. I actually I feel for a lot of teachers who have about up to 40 kids in the classroom. Let's talk about Finland. If we talk about Finland and Finnish education, one of their main reasons to success is actually they have got a very controlled environment. The classrooms are very controlled. They have teacher aides, pembantu guru. They have a very minimum amount of students in the classroom. These are all something that are made so that they can achieve the best of their students. Even though they're in Finland, their teachers have PhDs and all this. Yes, but one of the biggest reasons to their success is basically the classrooms. Every classroom in Finland is actually the same. The classroom size is always set to a certain amount, but I think it does matter. Yes. So I started off at a bit of a negative note. Now let's try to make it a bit positive, right? So though the classroom size matters, I think what teachers could attempt to do is to actually apply differentiation strategies. This is crucial. And of course, you probably can't do everything that Mr. Sam does. That is actually unreasonable to expect from every teacher. It's very unreasonable. It was a personal choice. It was a personal choice for me to come up with a lot of innovations. Yes. It was a personal choice for me to do it mostly on my own and all this. Yes. But what we need to do is we need to maximize what happens in the classroom first. So that is the first step. So for teachers, what you need to do is familiarize yourself with differentiation strategies. You can just go and Google it right now. Differentiation strategies. You will get 7 key ways to actually improve your classroom practice. Of course, the impact is definitely depends on, someone says 46. Wow, hats off to you, whoever you are. 46 students in one classroom is hell of a lot. It's a lot. So you need to apply differentiation strategies. You can differentiate the tasks, you can differentiate the outcomes, you can differentiate the time. So these are just a few strategies that I use along the way. But in the long run, I think the best way to actually deal with this definitely is to make sure that every class has a manageable size of students. But of course, I think Yutish will know about this. Coming up with policy decisions, this is what I study as well. It's not as easy as it sounds. You can't just expect the Ministry of Education to just spend $5 billion to actually add building blocks, or employ 100 teachers for every district or every school. It doesn't work that way. If you study the economics of education, it needs to be feasible. You need to have a marginal benefit, or an outcome that is something that you are spending this much of money, the outcome will actually be relatable. Yes, definitely. Yes, these are all relatable areas. But what you are teaching in the classroom, as your role in the classroom right now, is to make sure that you are actually applying whatever you have learned, applying the right strategies, applying good everyday practice. Focus on that. That is what you need to focus on. Maybe your challenge is 40 kids in the classroom. My challenge is something different. I think when we started off, we spoke about this as well. My challenge is poverty. My challenge is the lack of infrastructure. My challenge is this. My challenge is the community not seeing education as something that's meaningful to them. These are my challenges. Your challenge would be 40 students, 40. Try to overcome these challenges. Define the problem first. Don't jump to solutions. Define the problem. Search, look at what strategies that you can employ. I gave you one strategy, which is differentiation strategies. You can try that. Maybe there are other ways to do it, and then try your best. That's what I did. I tried my best for my kids, and I'm going to keep on trying my best for my kids in whatever capacity.
All right, there is a question here. If there are teachers who would like to follow in your footsteps, what is the best advice that you will give?
If teachers would like to follow in my footsteps, I mean, I first of all thank you for the question. I think it's an honor to me as what I do in my professional practice. I think for me, the first thing that I would suggest you to do is always be critical of yourself and always try to improve. Be critical of yourselves, try to improve, and focus on the kids. I think this will be the 3 main things I would like to share. That's how you can probably not follow in my footsteps in that way, but make your teaching and learning the best for your students, how they receive it the best way possible. So I think these three ways lah. Don't go back. Whoever that's listening here, guru besar, principals, or schools, KPs who are listening here today, don't go back to your school and force your students to do and your teachers to do an email exchange program or ukulele program like Mr. Don't do that. Define your problem, find the best way that you can do it with your kids, what your students have, what your teachers are capable of. Try to design an intervention that suits your practice. Don't take what Sam did at face value. Take how Sam did it, why Sam did it. I think that is most important. Not what Sam did, but how and why Sam did it. I think this is something that we could learn together from.
Okay.
Because I think in the last slide that I showed, if you're going to try to emulate what I do with the wrong principles, it's going to be a big waste of time. It's just going to be a big waste of time. Your outcomes that you get, your students not progressing really well, you will see it, and at the end of the day, you're going to blame Sam. Yeah, you see, lah, I follow Sam, and this is what happens. It's not. That's not how it works. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. If I have a secret strategy to get this done, I would have shared with the world, sold it for billions of dollars, and make money about that. But that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, Kamini.
Yeah, just now, you were talking. I mean, throughout the whole session, we're talking about challenges and all. Actually, what is the biggest challenge? I mean, we were talking about challenges, like part of the challenges, and the interventions you have done. But what was the biggest challenge you faced to reach where you are today? What is the biggest challenge actually?
Well, for
Perhaps
me, I never saw it as a conquest of a professional development conquest. I view my career very differently. My career and what I did with the students was for the students. I've never planned it out this way to be a top 10 finalist. Hi Alam, I just had to make a shout out. I never meant to make it that way. I never designed my programs or interventions so that I could actually make it at an international scale. My main intention, company, is to help my kids. That is all. But for teachers, I think in our professional career, these kind of awards, this sharing at presenting at conferences, getting awards, it is crucial for your professional development. If you see it as a way of that actually recognizes what you do to give you that motivation to go on further, do go ahead. There's nothing wrong with it. Put yourself out there. Put yourself out there with international conferences, international competitions, and all that. Put yourself out there and challenge yourself further. So find your motivation. Once you find your motivation, I think you'll be able to. Don't try to do it the way Sam did to reach a certain level. Because to be honest with you, even joining the Global Teacher Prize, it was not my idea. I did not want to join it. A lot of the awards or competitions that I have joined throughout the years, it wasn't something that I wanted actually. I was just happy doing the best for my kids. I was happy seeing them grow, seeing them learn. A lot of teachers are like this. I'm very sure. I was just happy doing that. But for me, throughout the years, I think I have developed a different sense of calling. I've developed a different sense of purpose from when I first started. I realized that showing what I do with the kids and showing the progress and the impact that it has brought to my kids, showing my skills, sharing with people, has developed me into a position where I have a voice. And when I have this voice, I need to use it the best way I can. And I keep on saying this over again, is that this award, the hero of this story, of this Global Teacher Prize, or whatever this is not merely about me. It is about the capabilities of my Orang Asli students, about rural students, about Felda students. They've always been viewed about clang students, who are involved in gangsterisms and all that, who are families who have lots of socio-economic growth. It is about them. It is showing that they have capabilities, and we need to find the best way to bring out the best of their potential. I think that's what I'm doing right now, and that's what I want to do. And coming to an international stage like this, it's given me a voice to tell the world, in fact, that underprivileged children have got capabilities. We need to give them the best. We need to level the playing field. We need to level the playing field. When I started the 21st century classroom, for example, company, when I first started it, I wanted my kids to have the best learning environment similar to an international school. They must have the best. Our kids must have the best, no matter where they come from. That is what I wanted to do. So if someone wants to reach an international stage for whatever reasons that you have, or however that it motivates you, go for it. I would encourage you to go for it, because it will only make you better. It will only make you better. But at the end of the day, focus on the children. At the end of the day, your calling has to be true. Your focus and your intention has to be true.
All right. So Sam, this is a bit personal question. What are your future plans in the education field?
Are we having a pillow talk, bro? Personal, what? Excuse me.
What
Future
are your
plans for what
future
now?
plans in the education field?
Uh, that's quite hard to answer. I'll be very elaborate with my answer. A lot of the things that I've done is always with the sense of improving myself. I actually enrolled with company years ago to do our masters, and I think that enrollment to do my masters, something that we did back then, was not because of the right reasons. And quitting my masters back then was one of the best decisions that I could have ever made. So I don't want to talk about that so much. What I'm trying to say here is this: a lot of the things that I'm doing and I end up doing is for the sense of improving myself. My 8 years in that school, basically, I hit a wall. There was a point where I hit a wall. I tried almost everything. I tried my best to my own capabilities. Everything that I could have ever done, I can safely say I've done it. I hit a wall. And as I was searching for what I could do more, because I knew that a lot of the things that I did not only, the problems that we were facing was not just about the classroom. It was more than that. It was more about the community as well. It was more about the Orang Asli people in general. So my motivation stems from wanting to improve myself, and that is why I got myself the Fulbright scholarship. I'm very thankful for that. I was in New York only until the pandemic. It has given me that motivation to keep on improving myself, to see how much more I can give them. Yes, CFR, can do attitude, definitely. So that is basically my aim. So if someone asks me what is your aim, my aim is this: is to keep on giving my best for the kids, for the community, and if you want to put it in another way, for Malaysians in general lah. So as long as that is my focus, I think I will not stray away from this path that I have lah. It could be in whatever capacity, I don't mind, but that is basically, if I can give my best in whatever I'm doing, that should be good enough, right?
Okay, one final question. A final question, yeah?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I would like to ask you, why actually did you take the extra mile? And do you think teachers should do that? I mean, what is your wise words, words of wisdom, anything? Why the extra mile?
Why I took the extra mile? Because I saw problems and I refused to ignore them. That's the basic reason why, the main reason why I could not ignore the problems. The important problems were so severe. I could have taken the easy way out by saying I've done my job, I've done my part. I can blame somebody else for this. I can blame another teacher for it. However, this is not something that we should expect from everyone. We need collective impact. We need to work together. We need to work together as a school, as teachers, as panel members. We need to be critical of one another, to be improving one another, so that at the end of the day, the students are the ones who are going to benefit from this. Not me, not you, not Yutish, not anybody else. It is the students. And to expect everybody to go the extra mile, I would think that is something that we should not be focusing on. We should not be doing that. People have different needs. Like for me, I spend a lot of my time, a lot of my own money, a lot of my own efforts to do a lot of things for my kids. But we can't expect every teacher to do that. Every teacher has got different commitments at home. Some have got parents to take care of. Some have got sick children to take care of. It is just, at the end of the day, this is a job, a professional job that we need to do. And so what I think is, we need to give the best help to teachers to do their job the best as they can. But this does not come at the expense of teachers of being reflective of what they do. A lot of times we end up saying this, oh, everything is, the problem is everyone else but me. No, we need to be reflective of ourselves. Look at our practice of what we're doing in the classrooms with. And I think that is where we can get the best for the kids. But to expect everybody to do what I do, I think that is painting a very wrong narrative. We shouldn't. We shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be doing. We should try to make the best of what we can do in the classroom. But of course, if we have more individuals in more communities trying their best for one another, if everybody starts trying their best, we don't need Samuel or somebody else for that matter to actually go overboard, because everybody is already trying their best already. What? That's what I'm trying to say. But please don't let this stop you from actually doing great things for your kids. If you see a problem, you want to solve that problem, go on, do it. If you can do it, just do it. But it's also very unfair to expect everybody to do it the same way I did.
All right. For the audience, there will be link given for you for the attendance. You might want to fill up the form for your SPL KPM. And I take this platform to thank our star today,
I'm not the
Mr.
star.
Samuel,
The
who
children are
willing
the
to
star.
join us.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Yitesh. I just had to cut you off there.
That is
But I think
humble,
yes, the focus has always got to be about the teachers, because at the end of, sorry, about the students. Because for me, whatever I have achieved was, I mean, the focus is definitely about how capable we teachers are. If we talk about the global teacher prize in general, for years right now, we have teachers making it to the top 50 consistently. So we have the quality, we have amazing teachers. But at the end of the day, it's about the kids, and the focus has to be about them. They are the heroes of this story. So if we are going to say something about them being the heroes, let's talk about the kids being the heroes. The kids fulfilling their truest potential are the heroes of this story. Be it Orang Asli kids in Pahang, Orang Asli kids in Selangor, Indian kids, Malay kids, Chinese kids, whatever schools there is, Borneo schools and all that. The kids, that should be our focus. Sorry, Yutish, I had to say that.
All right. So yeah, we want to thank Mr. Samuel who willing to join us today and share his idea and expertise with us. It was a very fruitful and meaningful sharing session where we believe it will help lots of teachers in their teaching and also their life as an educator. Thank you, Mr. Sam. All
Thank
right.
you.
I
It's an
also
honor to be here today. Bye-bye.
I also would like to take this opportunity to thank Tuan Haji Izmi bin Ismail, Director of Selangor State Education Department, Datin Nur Farida binti Abu Bakar, Deputy Director of Learning Sector, Selangor State Education Department, Puan Maimunah binti Mustafa, Klang District Education Officer, Puan Saadah binti Kasiran, Klang District Deputy Officer of Learning Sector, Cik Zahira Zulkifli, State Language Officer, and last but not least, special thanks to Puan Nurliza binti Idris, SIC Plus Officer of Klang Education Office, to take the initiative to organize the extra mile taken sharing session, which benefits a lot of teachers. And that's all for our session today. I believe all of us can do better and take an extra mile like Mr. Samuel. Before we leave, there is a video presentation with sound right now. With that, thank you, everyone.
The Orang Asli people and indigenous communities around the world have been put at the backseat for way too long, and it's time we change that.
I said to myself that, if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And I've been placed here for a reason, and I'm going to do the best I can for the kids.
I am delighted to announce that Samuel Isaiah from Malaysia is a top 10 finalist for the Global Teacher Prize 2020.
repeat. Kita makan ubi.